having humility regardless of political beliefs, regardless of even religious beliefs, or like sports teams, regardless of position on if they got their COVID vaccine or if they wear a mask, have humility. Because at the end of the day, Jesus is not going to look at you and say, I'm really glad that you cussed out that guy.
Let's jump in. Today we're talking with Chris Bounds, who's a follower of Jesus Christ, an investor. He's a flipper, having bought and sold over 150 properties. He's a realtor, having been part of over 300 transactions. And if you average that out, he's got a weekly run rate of almost one property per week, which for average realtors is a very steep growth rate. So Chris Bounds, thanks for joining.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. We boosted those numbers a bit, but it's been an exciting journey.
To start, I thought maybe you could talk a bit about how you first heard the gospel and when you came to faith.
So I grew up backwoods country, Texas boy. We were not a church-going family, although the values were still there, which doesn't mean you're a Christian by any means, but those values were there. As a child growing up, I always believed in God. It really wasn't until I went to a church camp, or it was I think a vacation Bible school. I was about 10, 12 years old. And that was really the first time I actually heard the gospel and kind of understood what was going on. And whenever I got home, I do remember this. It was very distinct because I was in my bed, and I don't remember exactly what made me reflect on this. Or maybe I do know exactly what it was. It was Jesus knocking on my door, and I do remember saying that prayer to ask him to be my Lord and Savior, and just feeling this very distinct, like I can't describe it, but there was a very distinct moment, or what, I don't remember if it was 30 seconds, 10 seconds, or a couple minutes, but it was just this overwhelming calm and warmth that there was no mistaking it.
Maybe you could talk about when you're that young age. There's a lot of folks that make a profession of Christ when they're younger and then come back to it. And it sounds like that's a similar experience to you. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
So I didn't have guidance or leadership just because we weren't that family growing up. So it was just, I was blessed to have gone to VBS that summer, and just, everything aligned. And I know, so Jesus already knew that. I didn't, but that's where my journey stopped. It wasn't until I got to college. I went to Texas A&M University and met a friend there, and her family was very, her father was a pastor. They had a church, and so they did grow up with the gospel and in a very strong Christian family. And she's the one that actually educated me a lot more, and that's when my journey really takes off. And then if you want to back, or actually no, it was during that same time that one of my roommates in college too. He was a very devout Christian, and I remember that there was a Dave Matthews song playing, which I can't remember exactly what it is, but he's talking about Jesus in the song, and I asked him a question, and he goes, "You don't know the gospel?" And even though I was Christian, and I firmly believe that I was already saved, I didn't have that education, I didn't have that leadership, and but it was that point, and I got connected with the local church in College Station, loved it. And
what was the church, by the way, in College Station?
It was Central Baptist. I don't remember the pastor's name, but I loved that church. I'm not, again, just maybe it's because I didn't grow up in the church. He spoke in a very articulate, but also direct manner. There was no like sugarcoating it. Maybe it's the kind of the Southern Baptist way, which I don't consider myself Southern Baptist. I'm Christian first, but yeah, I really enjoyed that church, and that was the one and only church I really went to throughout my college years.
Got it. That's interesting. So you recognized the inclination towards seeing Christ as Savior as a younger person at VBS. VBS became sort of the implement to gain that, and then later on, through this, as you say, an education, a small opportunity for discipleship in this way, that's when you really saw things start to happen for you. That's very interesting. So that, I think, if anything, that points to the fact that we as believers need to be planting seeds, because it sounds like so far there's been nothing like there was a month-long catechization process and a no, it sounds like these were seeds that were being planted. And if anything, I think that that probably speaks to the fact that we have opportunity to speak to our friends and our neighbors in terms of evangelization and plant seeds. So I think that that's really encouraging to hear your story.
And the cool thing too is, once I was educated, so I was already saved. Now I'm in college. So some personal events happened in my life, but I can look back and I remember, of course, whenever you're stressed out or not having the best moment in your life, you kind of kneel down, or at least I do, and I get very humble and pray. But
Mm-hmm.
I can look back in those moments now, and it's almost like when God really showed up for the Jews throughout the Old Testament. Like they built memory stones, and I forget the actual term for it, but
Ebenezer's.
yeah, and so I can look back and I can see those in my life. Like my parents got divorced. That was like a big mess going on while I was in college. But I can see it, very distinct moment. I can see that. Um, I had a breakup with a long-term relationship right after college. I can see that moment. And then, of course, I always prayed for the woman that I would marry before I ever married her. And now I can see that that was in the works. And that prayer was always like, I don't know who she is. I don't know where she is. I don't know what she's doing, but you do. And I'll just trust that because one, clearly I have zero skills with ladies. And two, you've got a bigger plan in my life. So that's about the only thing I can hope for. And that's, it's worked out keeping the hand off the wheel than trying to control everything.
Mm. So allowing the God's sovereignty to be the major driver in your life. That's great. That's
That's
very
not
helpful.
easy.
No
That's
doubt.
not easy. I don't
And
have that figured
especially
out.
for somebody that does the gets the kind of results that you have, I'm sure that's especially difficult, which is the next set of questions that I was going to ask you about. Maybe you could talk about the scale from your first investment properties moving to into the cadre of services that you now offer. How was that shift for you in terms of your mindset? How did you get from point A to what we have now?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with starting. So for me, that was in college. I've been entrepreneurial my whole life, selling um, it was candy and stuff in college, or in grade school. And then I get to college, end up taking a course on how to invest in real estate, bought four houses while I was still in college. I flipped two of them, and the other two were held as rentals. And took a little break after that. My business partner also was a was the long term relationship that just didn't work out. So took a
Hmm.
break from that. Then when I got married in 2011, priorities change. Had a good job, but I knew I needed to invest. I knew what that would look like long term. So we started buying rental properties. And then 2014 got my real estate license. 2015 finally at this point, I'd built up enough um, reserves and also proof of concept and momentum within our business where I was able to go full time. And so over that time period, it's closer now to 200 properties that we flipped, including rentals. I mean, some of these we still own. And then many more transactions when you consider the retail transactions that we've been a part of with sellers that we didn't buy their house, we just helped them out, or friends or family, we help get their dream home.
If you consider what the average real estate professional does on a regular basis, yours is a step above, fairly above that. Status quo being our biggest foe, he has many allies, and the gravity of the status quo cannot be underestimated. Many in the industry don't arrive at results like yours, and that probably comes as a result of setting up certain things in place. Maybe it's accountability, maybe it's cultivating success-minded relationships. Can you talk a bit about how you've structured yourself to arrive at the results that you have?
I want to be careful with the word above, and I know where you're going with it, but just the word itself, that was something I believed years ago, in that I, being selfish, being kind of like having an ego, like, yes, I am above agents, and I don't think you meant that, but I just want to be careful with the word, because being a real estate agent, like, they work hard, and right now it's tough with low inventory, but they're out there just like Joe is at accounting with Exxon, or Sarah who's running a department store. So they're working hard for their money. I just chose that. I mean, one, I had a job, so Jamie and I, we chose to buy rental properties. And then I did want to transition out of the job, so we started doing flips, because that's how you really make big short-term cash,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really the only way I was going to be able to quit my job. So we started doing a lot more flipping, and then now we've kind of transitioned back. It's like, at the end of the day, you can flip, but you're kind of in that same position where you're working hard, just like the realtor. You're out there. I mean, realtors are working really hard for commission, but once you flip a house, once you wholesale a house, once you do a commission and help a client, like, that income stops. You'll never get it
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
Maybe you can get repeat business down the line. For the realtor, for the flipper, you're not going to get much repeat business at all. But we started focusing on the cash flow. That's building wealth and building passive income. That's what's going to grow long term. Because in 10 years, I'm not going to look back. Like, right now, 200 houses sounds great. I would trade all 200 houses if I could have 20 of them paid off.
hmm.
Like, at the end of the day, so in 10 more years, am I going to be happy if I did another 100 or 300 houses? Or will I be happy that I now have a 50 unit or a 100 unit rental portfolio?
Mm.
So if the work done once but continues to pay and goes up in value. So that's what we focused on. I still do flipping, just to a lesser degree. I still work with clients, just because I can, because I'm not a good fit to buy every house, but we can help people.
Yeah. And going back comparatively to 4 years ago, if you were to run a comparison of how things were back then in the industry for you versus now, have you noted any accelerators in your space because of COVID?
Yeah, I mean, you can throw the competition, that's always there, and it'll always be there. But COVID specifically, inventory, we just, like, half the inventory is off the market. Uh, Literally, this straight from HAR, 55% less inventory last month than March of 2020.
Wow.
If you take any other industry and you just say, hey, look, we've got the same amount of buyers, but now there's less, there's half of the cars available to buy. There's half of the clothes that you can buy. Like, what's going to happen? Prices are going to go up. You're going to get
Sure.
bidding wars, and at that point, for me, I'm a bit more conservative, partly because through experience, but it makes it challenging to find that deal that I'm looking for. It makes it easier to do rentals, which, again, that's part of just evolving. So we're doing less flips anyway. So that is a one of the reasons why we shifted, other than just building wealth. But that's huge. And that's not just Houston. I mean, that's nationally, internationally. And then alongside of that, you've got commodity prices. I saw a meme earlier today. It was like the cost to build a 200 square foot deck was like $1,000 last year, and now it's like 3,500
Oh,
because of lumber costs.
lumber.
What do you think that does to a house?
That's
And that doesn't
crazy.
even include plastics and all the other stuff that goes into building homes.
55%. What do you think is the accounting for that? If there's the same number of buyers and only half the inventory, what what has caused that 55% number?
Yeah, and it's not exactly the same number of buyers because some, either because of qualifications, if they took a forbearance on their current house, then they can't buy. But that also means they probably can't sell their house because they can't move anywhere else. So yeah, for some, it's maybe it was the job qualification that they can't upgrade or move like they thought they would be able to. For some, it could be the prices are going up. Like I was at a new model home yesterday, and she said that model home last year was $65,000 lower. Same house,
Ooh,
$65,000 in 1 year. Um, and on top of that, they just don't have any inventory to sell because they're waiting on new lots to be developed. So that's part of it. And other ones are probably just like, I'll just kind of wait this thing out and see what happens. Um, and then so we before COVID, we had an inventory problem. This isn't just COVID. COVID doubled the problem.
mm-hmm.
It will go away, but it won't be overnight. It's going to take time. Um, is that 18 months, 36 months? That I don't know. But right, and when you have, I think it was February, we had less than 1 month of inventory in Houston. 6 months is healthy. Historically, 6 months is healthy. We've been in the 2-ish months for a long time, and then we dipped below 1 month in February. It's insane. It's a little over for March. It was like I think 1.2 months.
Wow. Wow. So let's talk about the before and after. Um, did it impact the way that you work? And if it did, maybe you could talk about the way that the Lord showed himself to you through that.
Yeah, and so I mean, we had challenges like I guess 2017 through 2019, even into 2020 were kind of challenging for us. I mean, flipping's a very risky business. You can make a lot of money, you can lose money. We've done both.
Yeah.
Um, and so and also if you were trying to scale like we are, you're building this machine, this very high cash hungry machine. And we just saw that there's really no end to it. It's at the end of the day, like everything you buy, you have to sell because you have to feed the machine and grow. And we wanted to not do that. So we had to slow down that operation, which you can't just turn it off because you have economics built into the machine. So it was a slower transition. COVID did allow us to make that hard final step where we went completely virtual. Here's another like memory stone that I can think of. So we had our lease signed to renew our office right before COVID, like all the shutdowns happened.
Mm-hmm.
Signed on Jamie's desk. It was there for a week. For some reason, she did not turn it into the landlord. And had she, we would have been locked in for at least another year, a year or 2 years.
Oh
I forget.
man.
She didn't turn it in. And then in my head, and I'm busy with other things, so I didn't articulate it to her soon enough, but I'm like, I don't know if we should do this. Like, maybe we should think about it. We don't know what's going to happen. And then finally I did. She's like, I haven't even turned in the lease. I'm like, whoa, like, I really don't think we should do it. So we didn't. We didn't renew. We're still virtual. We'll get another office, but at this point we're very virtual, very lean staffed, much higher margins. So it's been healthy for us financially. Sometimes it can be challenging with kids and all that coming in,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that was another little milestone, memory stone that I can look back to.
Very good. And based on what you've seen so far, what's become sort of popular that you would shake your head at, sort of leaning into one practice or another that causes you to shake your head?
Yeah, arbitrage. I'm not gonna say it's new, but the internet and social media has made that so much easier, and it's really kind of where the economy is moving to. So, like arbitrage, here's an example: Airbnb. You can go out and buy nice homes and on the beach in Jersey, in Florida, Galveston, or San Diego or whatever. It'll cost you a lot of money. It's a lot of risk. Or you can use the arbitrage method by going in and getting leases on some of those properties, full market rent leases. But Airbnb, the margins are, if you're running your Airbnb correctly, it's 2 to 3 times, maybe even more, depending on the area, of what market rent would be. That's what you're able to get from a short-term rental. So
Right.
these guys doing and gals doing arbitrage, they're able to at scale lock up leases, and they're doing these leases 2, 3, 5 years, and they can now lease it out themselves and make the spread. Now on the flipping wholesaling side, it's building community. So you can go out and do 20, 30 grand a month in direct marketing. That's what we were doing. Or you can build a community, because the community will always be, if it's a value add community, it's going to attract new folks all the time, folks that know about John the neighbor who he's moving, or say it's a bad situation where one of their neighbors passed away. You know the family too, and they're going to need to sell their house. And oh hey, I know this guy. He buys houses. Won't you give him a call? So it's building that community to where you can be the go-to.
Mm.
Kind of like you're hosting the party, and everyone wants to talk to the host of the party. Um, but there's value for everyone. Everyone just come up hanging out. They enjoy the party, but talking to hosts, like you become like the center of gravity. So businesses starting communities, whether it's Facebook groups or private communities, personal branding, that's becoming increasingly important and probably at some point vital if you want to compete.
Chris, I know that you got to go. I really appreciate your time today. A few of the key takeaways that I've taken from this conversation is the importance of planting seeds towards evangelism. That's one really important point. Also, how you spoke about prayerfully trusting in God's sovereign work to accomplish whatever needs to be done, and talking about how you developed scalability towards the successful results that you've had by describing it through this analogy of this cash hungry machine. I hadn't heard it described that way before. And then lastly, how Airbnb being something to gain a 2x or 3x standard net profit. Chris, I've appreciated your time today and your insights. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that we should have talked about today?
And I guess closing is just always have that humility. And this has been evolving with me too. I think naturally I'm always, it's easier for me, but just having humility, regardless of political beliefs, regardless of even religious beliefs, like sports teams.
Mm-hmm.
Politics is usually the big one, regardless of position on if they got their COVID vaccine or if they wear a mask. Have humility, because
Mm.
at the end of the day, like I firmly believe this: Jesus is not going to look at you and say, "I'm really glad that you cussed out that guy on Facebook. Good job, good job." Like it's just not going to happen. You could be all right. I don't think he's going to be giving you a pat on the back for doing that. So just have humility. It's okay. We can all have different opinions, and you just don't have to be right all the time. Ultimately, but by doing that, you're actually shining that. It's that you are being that salt and light that you're supposed to be,
Mm.
building a relationship, and then maybe you can have a deeper conversation later on. And for all you know, they've got stuff going on that's driving their current emotional state. Um, and you just don't know it. You don't know everything.
Thanks for joining, Chris. Appreciate your insights, and I wish you all the success moving forward.
Thank you, Sean. This was fun.